Imaginers, thank you for tuning in live with all of us. Please let us know if you can hear me. If you can hear me, then you can hear everybody. So please just leave a comment letting us know that you can hear me. Everybody else say hello. Sam, Ashley, Lindsay, say hello to the world.
Hello.
Hello. Before we dive in to this conversation, just some important things to get out of the way. My name is Scott Weidenkiewicz. I am the content and community manager here at Imagen. If we haven't met before, it's nice to meet you now. My goal here is to help you get the most out of Imagen so you can spend less time worrying about the tedious post-production and get back to focusing on what you love. So in the comments, if you want to get the ball rolling, share where you're tuning in from. We've got a lot of people who signed up. We got a lot of people rolling in already. Please share where you're watching from so that, because we currently are very scattered around the world, which is great. So yeah, we're covering all the time zone bases. We're trying to, at least. So that's a lot of fun. So share in the comments where you're tuning in from. Please get your questions rolling in. If you've got questions, we will keep track of the questions. And finally, if you are new to Imagen, welcome. We're very glad that you are here with us. This is all about talking about the new profile adjustments feature that Imagen has rolled out and what it means for Sam, for Lindsay, and for Ashley, and for you as well, of course. So if you have any questions about the profile adjustments feature, if you have any questions for Sam, Lindsay, or Ashley, please, just say, Sam, here's my question, Ashley, here's my question, Lindsay, here's my question, so that we can make sure we address it to each individual or to everybody, because this is a round table. If you're watching the replay, if a friend shared it with you, sorry you couldn't tune in live. If you signed up and couldn't tune in live, sorry you couldn't tune in live. But that just means you can't comment, but you can still watch the replay. So just comment with the word replay if you're watching the word replay so we know you are doing that. With that said, let's see where everybody's tuning in from.
That was well said, by the way. That was
wow. I felt like I was just watching a masterclass in introductions there. That was amazing. You should be a talk show host.
I
know.
That was really good.
Too. So Arizona, we have India, San Francisco.
Yeah, Ontario.
I've never been to Wet London. Where's Wet London? Is that a?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's the weather right now. There it is.
I am not getting those same comments you're getting. All I see is one comment. Am I missing something?
You don't see the chat tab in Restream, Lindsay?
No, I have one message in my chat tab.
Hello.
Weird. New Haven, it says hello, New Haven, Connecticut from Robert Skinner.
Maybe make your screen larger or adjust your resolution. You should see a lot.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
Lonely.
They come in very aggressively. It's like shink.
Yep.
Weird. All right. Well,
this before. This is really, really neat. I feel like I'm in the future here. This is great.
Serbia. Holy shit. That's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's nice. We get a lot of people tuning in from all over the world, which is fantastic. I think right now we don't have anybody except Lindsay in Hawaii. So, but I'm sure it will.
Lindsay's in Hawaii. Yeah. I hope somebody else has woken up with me when we were trying to figure out the time for this. I was like, okay, well, I'm glad Sam went in first with his time zone, because I'm usually in Eastern Standard Time as well. Right. And I was like, I don't even know where to start by me recommending times. I'm in Hawaii just temporarily for anybody that's wondering what the heck is going on there.
Awful place to be.
I know.
It's its own universe for sure.
But I had a real commitment. I woke up at 5:30 for this, so I don't know. Yeah, there's points in there. I hope I won a couple.
Oh, there's points. There's points. Yeah. So why don't we start with some brief introductions? Lindsay, why don't you share a little bit about yourself so anybody who doesn't know who you are does?
For sure. So hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Coulter. I am a wedding and portrait photographer, generally based out of Waterloo, which is just outside of Toronto, in Canada, not in Hawaii, sadly. No whales at home. Yeah, that's me. I have been using Imagen. I used it for every single session and every single wedding I shot last year, which was like 35-ish weddings and over 300 other sessions, engagement sessions, family sessions, commercial. Big time obsessed.
Awesome. Ashley.
Beautiful. I'm Ashley Ray from Phoenix, Arizona, the nice sunny state of all the states. I have been photographing weddings for about 10 years now, and I do portraiture as well as education. I started using Imagen back in October of last year, and it was during a time where I was just overwhelmed, flooded with just so much work on my plate, where it just immediately took that relief away. So it has been such a great journey so far, and I'm a big time fan, and I am just so blessed to have been provided the information about Imagen from a friend of mine, and the rest is history from here. It's just amazing.
I'm going to ask you a question that I ask everybody I meet that lives in Arizona. Do you have grass, AstroTurf, or dead grass?
We have rocks.
Rocks. Yeah, I should have had a fourth one to that, because it
None of the
blew my
above.
mind. The first time I went to Arizona to stay with friends that moved out there, they had AstroTurf, and it totally caught me off guard. I was not expecting it. So
It burns a little bit, has a weird smell to it. We just have rocks and cactus.
nice. Sam, you're up.
Hey, I'm Sam from the East Coast, primarily Baltimore, Washington, D.C. Been shooting weddings for 12 years. And yeah, I don't know how I became aware of Imagen. I think it was through a photographer named Neil. And I love him so much. I only bothered to learn his first name. He's a Scottish photographer from the UK. And yeah, it's been quite the ride, kind of figuring out what AI even is as a product, and if it's like replacing what I'm doing, or if it's augmenting what I would actually be doing by hand anyway, even better and more consistently. So it's been kind of an interesting ride since then. But yeah, I don't know what else you asked me to say. But anyway, East Coast, USA, big Imagen fan. I also have tried many, many other AI applications for editing. And the main thing I always try and stress with people is, a lot of AI apps tend to do easy light, like the generic kind of soft cloud or sunset light, really the same in terms of quality, but where apps really fall short is like a trade-off needs to be made, where it's indoor mixed light. Imagen always makes like the better trade-off for me, and so that literally saves me time during the part of a wedding day where I want to be spending the least amount of time actually editing. And anyway, yeah, it's my little
That's my
insight.
favorite part too. It's like
For sure.
And there's something fun that Ashley, you probably don't even know this, but Sam photographed Lindsay's wedding.
oh,
Ceremony. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah,
So-
the real wedding. Yeah, we got married on Taco Tuesday at a dive bar in our hometown, and Sam flew up for it. It was so much fun. They're my
was
favorite
awesome.
photos.
Yeah, it was literally, you were signing your wedding license like on the pool table of the restaurant that people were having.
Just like
Yeah.
mucking the nastiest tacos in my wedding dress. Yeah, it was good. It was so much fun. I had actually gone to one of Sam's workshops. He came to our city like probably 2 years or 3 years before our wedding, Sam. And I was like, oh, this guy's awesome. I actually, you know what? We met in Italy. I won't lie. We met in Italy at a wooden banana, like late night party. It was, like one of these like weird photography workshop parties, like the final night. And we were in a cellar, and I cornered Sam, and I was like, hi, I loved your talk. And you were like, you're getting married in Mexico. Can I shoot your wedding? honestly go for the ask, because I was like, Sam Hurd could shoot my wedding. I went to Taylor and I was like, we have to have Sam come to our wedding now.
Oh my God.
But actually, Sam's also how I heard about Imagen.
That's amazing.
Note to self: if you want Sam to shoot your wedding, corner him in the cellar of a.
Yeah, I'll be in Hawaii next week. I don't think there are many cellars there. I'll be in Prague after that, so
I
maybe
don't know
Prague.
how well you want to be in, yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's probably not a lot of cellars here, maybe like fallout shelters or something.
Fallout,
But
Right. Oh my gosh.
this is already so much fun. So we've been rolling it out for some time, but now it's out to 100% of Imaginers. This profile adjustments feature, which for anybody who does not know what that is, basically it means that you can make a real-time adjustment on your personal AI profile or a talent AI profile to dial it in to specific settings. It can do either relative corrections based on what the AI does for you, or you can do fixed values. So if you're finding that you need something that's always exactly in a certain red, or if you need noise reduction exactly a certain way, or anything like that, you can dial in the settings for pretty much everything in the develop module.
Mhm.
So this feature is rolled out. It's funny. We called this live stream, this is a big deal, because when I texted Sam to say it's out now, his reply was, this is a big deal. And the funny thing is that that's the reply I get over and over and over again. So that is why we call this live stream, this is a big deal. And I definitely agree that this is a game-changing thing that, 3 years ago when we created Imagen, we created this batch AI editing software, that was already game-changing. But now you're talking, we're taking it up to the next level, making it even easier for everybody, no matter where they're starting from, whether it's their own editing style or an existing editing style. So with that, Lindsay, you, if I recall, you use talent AI profiles or a personal AI profile?
so I've used both.
Mhm.
I was using a talent AI profile, and I actually used it to get started. I started with Imagen. I feel like everybody says I started at a really busy time. Everything was crazy. Like, I'm not sure when things weren't crazy, but I started when things were really crazy for me at the beginning of last year. And I couldn't wrap my head around, like, you want me to sit down and like put together all of my catalogs, and I just wasn't quite sure how I was going to wrap my head around getting started. So I felt like the fastest way was to try to test out some of the talent profiles. And I went about this in a really weird and roundabout way. I tested a few different ones. I found the one that I liked the most, which was Nitsangur. Is that how I say his name? I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
So I think technically it's Nitsangur. I even have a hard time saying his last name, but yeah.
That was
you got it.
phenomenal. Okay, pretend I said it like that. And Nitsan's, his profile is beautiful. It's very, very similar to mine. It was a really good starting point for me. And I applied my own preset to it after the fact, and then made some like global adjustments from the talent profile to make it match what like my edit would look like. So I did that for the majority of last year. And then once I had what I felt like was actually more consistent work than I was producing beforehand. Because I think the other issue that I felt like I had was that if I was going to upload like 10,000 of my edits, they weren't going to be consistent. It was going to be training off of my previous inconsistent editing style. Consistent enough, but I had a lack of confidence in my own editing style, I guess I'll say, especially in that I shoot babies and weddings and branding sessions in my studio where it's like beautifully lit into like dark, reception halls. So I wasn't sure how it was going to do. Anyways, with that being said, I started with a talent profile. And then actually what I did this past winter was I trained a new profile based on all of last year's edits. So it's sort of like based on Nitsan's work as well as my own edit added on afterwards. So, but now it's amazing because I don't have to do anything afterwards. Now it's my entire talent profile. It like is so dialed in. It's exactly all of the split toning and just everything that I don't have to, there's nothing I add in afterwards. I'm literally just maybe adjusting a couple of crops, which is a delight.
Yeah. So like the idea of taking a talent AI profile and then building up this pool of 3,000 or more photos to then build your own personal AI profile, that was the only way to really customize, personalize a talent AI profile until now. So do you think that you would still have gone that direction if profile adjustments was available to you before you went through the effort of making your own personal AI profile?
Yeah, well, honestly, I mean, there's a couple of things. Like one, I add my preset on, which does my coloring really specifically, I guess. So I think that that's the part that I don't know that I
got it.
I for sure would have been able to, if I was able to go in and tweak it like, you know, we can now. Yeah, it pretty much does what I did without me having to build my own talent profile or my own profile. I ended up uploading like 20,000 images. Actually, thanks to Sam, I started using one catalog last year. Like, why do I have catalogs all over the place? Why do I have catalogs in every single area of my life? It was the craziest thing. And I have people asking me now, like, how's that even possible? I'm like, let me show you some math. It's so simple, and it's so much nicer to have all of your images in one spot. So if you're a person that's watching this and trying to figure out what's the simplest way to do this, we'll start out by making like an annual catalog. It's a massive time saver and just organizational hack, I feel like, that I don't know why I didn't think of it before, but it made it so much easier for me to then just upload, like, here's my working catalog from last year, learn from this, because then it does learn from all of the different types of situations that I was in. But yeah, I feel like I wouldn't have had to go that roundabout way. It worked out in the end. Obviously, it's still a massive time saver of what I did and creating my own. The one thing I'm really excited for, though, is like I have used the same preset, like it's one that I created. I've used the same one roughly for the past like 6 or 7 years. I've tweaked small things along the way every year. I'm like, okay, I'm going to change the tone of my yellow, or I'm going to change the greens a bit. And so when I built 20,000 images off of that, I was like, this is going to be such a bummer if I have to somehow try. Actually, you know what, Scott, I have a question for you, because I was talking about this with Taylor. My husband's Taylor Jackson, for anybody who doesn't know I'm talking about. Taylor's my husband. Anyways, we were talking about this last night, and I said, do you think, because I've trained this profile based on 20,000, if I wanted to impact it, if I wanted to make a change, would I have to then like impact it with that level of the number of images if it weren't for this, right? Like if it weren't for this new way of changing things, if I wanted to make a change to that and say, okay, now my whites are whiter, would I have to upload like 10,000 images where it was different? Like what's the,
it's a lot.
I'm just curious of the math on it.
Yeah, it's 1.5 times. It used to be 2 times. Now it's 1.5 times.
Okay. Because I was looking at the like to fine tune something, and it said it wanted 10,000 images to fine tune it, but now I don't have to do that. I guess I can just go in and be like boop boop boop.
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about the profile adjustments is fine tuning is still a good idea to do because it will keep learning from you over time. The thing is that the profile adjustments will now get you there faster, right? So now you don't have to make those edits. You could do that ahead of time in the profile adjustments and not make those edits after the fact to save that time, to make it so that, you can get to that 10,000 in much faster time than it would have otherwise. And what happens is when you fine tune your profile, it resets profile adjustments. So once your profile is updated with the new, what it's learned with that fine tune, all those manual adjustments you made get reset back to default. So you're not doing those on top of your fine tuned profile. That makes sense?
Yes, it does make sense.
Cool.
That's not what I honestly didn't know. So that's really cool to know, because I was like, if I wanted to make a change prior to profile adjustments, like you just start gradually over time tweaking your look and then see how long it takes you for it to learn that. So this is very cool because I usually feel like it's at this time of year where I'm looking at all of my work from last year. I'm doing more blogs. I'm like, I think I need to change something here. But now how? So this is, this is a big deal.
Yeah. So like, and you don't have to do the fine tuning if you don't want to. It's definitely a personal choice. You could just use profile adjustments forever if you really wanted to.
Right.
And that's where I'm at. I'm doing profile adjustments versus fine tuning. I noticed when I'll tell you guys, I built my profile off of 3 weddings. They were all drastically different in lighting scenarios. So I think that's why the consistency of my edits have been wonderful across the board because I allowed the system to learn from those 3 dynamic weddings. I'm obviously in Arizona, so our lighting and our venues are basically very similar. But I did pull in a wedding with a very orange environment up in Sedona. If anyone's been there, it's very orange and red. But I really wanted it to be more mellowed down for my taste because I shoot film. So I come from a background of shooting Fuji 400H and Portra 400. And I really wanted my profile to have those characteristics. And I knew that building my profile was important, but also important with where I'm at in Arizona. I didn't want things to be drastically adjusted from, one wedding to the next. And my style is changing a little bit. And I'm really proud of, where I'm going with my work. And so I took my favorite 3 weddings from last year, but the ones that I really was proud of, but also had different scenarios. And that's how my profile learned so quickly on mine. So I didn't have to go through a ton of like fine tuning, I guess. And when it asked me to do fine tuning, I did start to see some shifts happening a little bit. So I took the clock backwards and I went backwards a little bit and I kind of reset my profile back to where I was happy. And the only thing that my work really kind of needed was a basic adjustment of saturation. And I wasn't getting it. So I had to manually saturate my photos to bring in a little bit of that oomph that I was missing. So when the profile adjustments came out, I went in there and the first thing that I did was like plus 15 on that saturation because that's what I needed. So I reran my edits last night on my latest wedding. And I'm telling you, I didn't have to do a thing.
Should we pull it up? Because you just posted in the community. You want me to pull it up?
Let's pull it up. Didn't touch them. And I'll tell you a trick of how I get my edits so consistent too. Yes, didn't touch any of these. The black and whites, those were ran manually from my camera because I actually shoot all of my work that you see here in my camera in black and white. So these weren't even shot in color. I didn't even see the color in my camera. I left it on auto white balance. I was able to see my highlights, able to see my shadows, my exposure. So it's something that I just started to do that I'm very proud of seeing things differently in detail. So when I converted it into Lightroom, they were just really beautiful out of camera. And I'll actually share that with you guys today in the group.
That's one of my favorite things is to set the camera to black and white and not pay attention to color when I'm shooting. I love doing that.
Do not pay attention to the color. It will work itself out. Leave it in auto, but I do switch it back to color just to make sure that the auto white balance is okay. And then sometimes I'll put it into Kelvin and then I'll convert it back into monochrome and I'll still continue to shoot in black and white. So that whole wedding was mostly done not in color.
So correct me if I'm wrong,
beautiful.
but
thank you.
So you're a hybrid shooter. So you're doing digital and film, or you're just doing film?
I do both. I do digital and film. I kind of converted a little bit more into film, a little less. So digital more recently because of COVID and, inflation of things. And so I really wanted my work to still emulate film as much as possible, but having a little less on that expense. So still matching up tones is very important to me. And so I've always matched my work side by side on my film photos. So I'm shooting about 5 to 10 rolls per wedding just to kind of get that matchup. And with my profile, it's very close. You can barely tell the difference between the digital and the film still.
So that was where I'm going with this. So like you trained your profile on both film and digital photos, and Imagen has learned to help match it so that if you look at those photos that you posted that we just shared, you cannot tell which was film, which was digital. they all have this consistent editing style. And now with profile adjustments, you're able to dial it in even more without having to do that extra saturation work after the fact, which is really nice.
Nice little cherry on top.
Little cherry on top. It's so good. Sam. So
So dramatic.
So I don't need to say anything. I think they covered it all.
Yeah, Sam. So why is this feature so important to you? I mean, like I said earlier, your reply was this is a big deal, right? And why is this so important to you? Why do you see this as such a big deal for the photography community?
I don't know. I have a Charlie horse in my leg muscle right now. So this is like, I think I might be very stressed by this question. Let me think about this. I took some notes actually from Lindsay and Laura. There?
Ashley.
I'm so sorry. I
look
wish
like a Laura.
we need some. You actually look more like an Ashley than a Laura, so that makes sense. Okay. So
It's okay. We're going to start calling you Sean.
That's totally fine. Anything with an S, it's okay. I can relate to him. It feels like we're entering into a very new era of photography. Like one of the things I've always been very confused by, and confused is probably the best word. With the film era of photographers was why is that better? Why is film inherently better? People latch on to the nostalgia of it. Like that's easy. That's an easy thing to lean into as somebody who's doing marketing, like a photographer shooting film decades after film was a thing. It's like, yeah, like you know how to milk that as a look, but why is it better for people? And I think it has something to do with the thousands, if not 10,000s or more, like they wouldn't be called this at the time, but data scientists that were like learning about the chemical reactions of film and all these different layers, from the actual thing you were shooting in the camera to what was happening in the develop room to how photographers were reacting to these things. And they were like, also the photographers reacting to the data scientists or whatever scientists, chemical scientists you would say at the time, to like offset and like create this equilibrium of what we think of as beautiful film photography. Like this is a very complex and 100-year history. And I feel like what's happening is that has all condensed, like collapsed down to 2 years with AI, which is kind of crazy. But we're all seeing the benefits in some way. And then the real experts, like all of us here, are feeling where the shortcomings are and trying to push against that. And profile adjustments literally is giving you like the granular level of, I don't know even how to describe it. It's just like bringing it into the new reality of, gosh, this thing that I would spend so much time manually doing and feel like my value and my time is worth it to make this happen. I can. What used to take me 2 weeks is now taking me 1 day. This is a weird emotion, by the way, to experience, because
Right.
How do you charge for that? Like as soon as clients know this takes 1 day, like that's a weird thing. But that is what I describe as business, where you can capitalize on the gap between what most people know and what the actual person doing the craft knows, and you charge for that as a thing. I don't know if any of that made sense, but
Sam, I had a really interesting conversation about that exact thing on my Instagram, with like where my Instagram is very interesting. It's like, I would say, I don't know, I actually have no idea. I'm in my mind, I'm guessing it's like 70% photographers and like 30% like potential clients. So it's weird when I speak publicly about like Imagen, and here I am just like chilling because I edited that wedding in 1 day. And I had a really interesting conversation because I care enough to share about Imagen, because I think, since I think the people following me are other photographers, I want them to know about it. And one of the things that I said was, photography is one of the only industries that I find people are so hesitant and so reluctant to adapt to things that are going to save them time. There's some romanticism about like staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning, the grind, the like, oh, I'm editing this gallery and I'm like, putting my heart and soul into it. But like, what if we could like put our heart and soul into the last, for me, it's like 10 years of editing. And then I trained like robots to learn that style. So it's not to say like AI just spit out somebody's profile for me and I was like, sounds good, I'll just take that. Like I did train it based on years and years of experience and all of the training that went into my profile. But in what other industry are we like, oh, I wish I could do this longer, slower, and worse? Like in no other world would we be like, that sounds awesome. I'd like it to be inconsistent. I'd like it to be a struggle. I'd like it to cause me so much like personal and professional grief that I question why I'm doing this. Like nobody's doing that. It's the craziest thing. So while I do think like there is some consideration obviously for our clients to say, so you just trained this thing and it's going to learn this really quickly and you're going to edit our photos faster. And previously, photographers as a whole, and this is like a total blanket statement, used to use the whole, we cost what we do because there's so much that goes into the editing. And I'm like, yeah, and also like, because the market allows it, first of all, is one of the reasons why we charge what we do. There's only one of me. I can only do so much in a year.
Oh, exactly. That's a big thing. I'm like, have you ever tried to hire?
It's dollar amounts, like.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to hire a contractor for your home to come and do a simple repair, like the easiest thing imaginable, and they will reschedule 2, maybe 3 times if you're lucky, even the good ones, because they are so overwhelmed by work that they have that latitude. And like wedding photographers, like you're hiring me to show up from something a year from now, which maybe I'm missing a leg or an arm a year from now. Who knows? Like this is a big part of why photographers can charge.
And Sam, for women, it's like maybe next year I felt like being pregnant.
Absolutely.
And now I literally can't have a human being because I'm going to be at your
100%.
wedding. So like that's also what you're paying me for, is like I'm giving you a part of my life. And this sounds like so dramatic, but I am literally giving you a part of my life a year to 2 years in advance. And so like, yeah, maybe it's $5,000 or $6,000, but like that sounds like a pretty sick deal to make sure that I don't accidentally have a baby on your wedding day.
And to build off of this as well, I think that everyone's like, oh my gosh, my clients are going to find out my edited photos or my wedding was done in 24 hours. I necessarily don't think that we have to share those things either, and I know I don't. But film is the same way. I mean, I don't edit my film when I get it back. It's done when I get it back. So it's really no different in that aspect too. But I think people need to learn that build on the back end, build behind the scenes of your product. So basically, because of the editing is now drastically easier for me, I'm now able to kind of focus in on client management better, client communication. My relationships within that alone has drastically, significantly changed for the better, where now I can have more client time. I can understand their weddings better. But when I was editing and editing and editing, it took me away from my goal, the feeling that I want to give my clients, and I didn't feel that was given based off of me sticking in front of a computer all day long. I did outsource my work though. I did outsource my editing. So I was definitely doing that. But when I would get it back, such manual edits still had to take place. I was still in front of my computer, and I don't think that my value is necessarily only within my editing. It's certainly not. But it's everything as a whole. It's the whole package, So I definitely feel like people need to build value there. Work on this, get this perfected, and get it onto the back burner for you, and work on the other building blocks in your business that can really make you stand out against anyone in your market, you might be up against. So it's beautiful to have this tool. But I don't think anyone should be afraid of it at the same time, or even sharing it with people. But I necessarily don't go out there and say I'm going to have your wedding done in 24 hours, because I'm building a better story on my wedding days, because I now know I have that support in editing where I now can see a storyline better. I can take more photos if I need to and not have to stress about it. But when I'm editing, I'm now piecing things together differently in Lightroom, where I'm now customizing the order of their photos versus streamline editing and going on to the next sequence. I'm now rearranging, seeing the story, it's a storyboard. And it's just been wonderful for me to put my attention there versus, the editing part, which I didn't always get to do because I was so overwhelmed. So now I can share a gallery and my clients are like, oh my gosh, it's like a movie still. And they're just rolling through and they can't get enough of it.
Ashley, okay, yeah, you are completely nailing it. Like the foresight, once you've been using it for a while, the foresight of knowing it's not going to take me 2 weeks to edit this wedding, but maybe a few days, enables me the day after the wedding or the next day maybe or whatever to throw out a dozen of my favorites and like get that thing blogged, which also pays me back because clients are super excited a few days after their wedding to have some photos and share to their friends and family. It's like a nice virtuous cycle of benefits.
Yeah.
When we were in Vegas for WPPI in, was it just February, March? I was at the, we were at the Imagen booth, and I was just chatting with photographers that were coming up and asking about it. And I had shot a wedding the day before I left for Vegas. So typically when that happens, like I travel a lot for work. And if I shoot a wedding before I leave, typically I let my clients know, like I'm traveling, and I try to like grind and like get something out while I'm on the plane. And just so that I know my clients aren't sitting there looking at my Instagram stories like, cool, you're having fun in Las Vegas. That must be nice, and wondering where their photos are, even though maybe I haven't ever actually like said that I would give them photos within a day or two or anything like that. But traveling caused me a lot of anxiety after doing client work, because I knew that they were watching and anticipating and excited to see some photos. And the night after the wedding that I shot, so it was a Friday or Saturday night, and I went to the airport hotel that night. I sat at the bar. I had called the entire thing during the dinner, because there's always just so much time me just sitting. So I called the entire thing during dinner. So it was completely called except for like the last of the images that hadn't been done for the rest of the night or whatever. I finished calling them. I ran them through Imagen while I was sitting at the airport bar at like 11 o'clock at night, which typically like, that would be when I start this entire process of like, okay, I'll do the import. Then I'm going to, go and make some selections of like, at that point in my mind, I'd be thinking I'll maybe select 30 photos or something like that. Just like enough to give them a good little story of the day. I had Imagen run an edit on 1,200 images. And I kid you not, 1,200 images were like perfectly done that night, that same night as the wedding. So that night I prepared a preview that was just a massive preview. Like it was, no one should have ever done this. I don't know why I did it, but I gave them like over 150 preview photos because I knew that they were excited. They had a huge wedding party. If I give them family photos and bridal party photos and portraits of the bride and portraits, like literally everything, nobody's going to be messaging me while I'm in Vegas being like, hi, where are these pictures? We'd like to see something. They're not going to talk to me for weeks after that if I don't speak to them first, right? So, now I can go into that feeling so good. But also I'm at the Imagen booth being like, check out this wedding I did literally 2 days ago. And people are like, how is that possible? And like, I let it run one night and it's done. It's like literally done now. And, it does allow me a couple of things, more time to spend on like removing distractions, like removing exit signs and removing like things that I didn't really have the capacity for to do in every photo, because if you're touching every single photo, it's just like, that's an insane amount of time to then also do masking and maybe have to pull something into Photoshop or whatever. So I'm actually spending more time doing those things because I want to and I can. But the other thing is like, because I do a lot of family sessions as well, it's a lot of, it's just a lot of images. Like weddings are obviously a lot of photos, but say September, October, and if there's any family photographers, you'll like know what I mean by September, October. You have this like, oh, this is going to be bad. And I would go into shoots literally feeling like I was holding my breath, taking less photos because I knew that I already had such an extreme backlog happening that I didn't want to overshoot that session. And I didn't want to take that many photos because I was literally afraid of what that was going to look like. The second that I put the card in my card reader, I'm like, regrets, you know? Now I'm like, might as well keep shooting.
Bring it on.
It's going to edit them perfectly. And I'm going to have these family photos back to them like instantly. I can't tell you what it has done for my anxiety. I have like moderate, I feel like most photographers have moderate generalized anxiety. And I can't tell you how good it feels to not be afraid when I'm taking photos, like when I'm in the session. I just get to be creative and be stoked and like not be worried, instead of like, this is going to be bad.
I'm so glad you brought up the travel thing because I know that you just like Sam, you guys do a lot of client work, whether it's a wedding or a family or whatever, and then travel somewhere and you've got to figure it all out. So I'm glad you brought it up because it's nice that you guys have found a way to utilize Imagen in that workflow while traveling, which can be very complicated in general, even before AI, right? It can be very complicated to work it all out, and in many ways can be way more tedious with all the travel. So it's nice that I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to bring it up. So thank you for doing that. I want to get to a couple questions from the live viewers. So we've got this question from Andrew. How many different profiles do you have? Indoor, ambient, cloudy, direct sun, flash, or is one profile good for all?
Indoor for studio, and then my main profile.
So we got a 1 or we got a 2?
I just have one. And honestly, Andrew, I think it's like a really good point. I don't know if you heard me say at the beginning of this, like I was concerned before I had started using Imagen, am I going to need? I had one preset that worked for all different settings, but I obviously would edit a darker room very differently than a lighter room. But Imagen has learned that it interpreted what I did in all of those circumstances, and I don't. And we have some wildly different reception and ceremony spaces where I'm from. Like, I thought it was funny. Actually, you're like, yeah, ours all look the same. I'm like, what's that like? Ours are so different. We have like dark, warm wood. We've got light, bright, airy, open spaces. And I do think it's interesting. Like, I would never like pigeonhole myself as like a light and airy or a dark and moody photographer. It's just not like, I'm going to shoot your day how it is. So if you have a candlelit ceremony, I'll shoot it like it's a candlelit ceremony. And if you have an outdoor garden party, I'm going to shoot it like it's an outdoor garden party. And thankfully, Imagen knows that. It can see that based on how I've edited all of those circumstances. It's not like, let's edit the garden party like the candlelit ceremony. It just knows. So, Andrew, I feel like you only really need one if you give it enough data points to show how you would handle all those circumstances.
So, train your profile off those scenarios too. So if you're dealing with an environment, you have ambient light, you have cloudy, you have direct sun, you have flash, train your profile on those specifics. It will learn through all of those scenarios of what you want your indoor light to look like. What do you want your cloudy environments to look like? So that's why I built mine off of 3 drastic different environments, because I knew that was going to best train my profile all around. And it did wonderful. And of course I updated my profile with a couple more weddings since then. And then I locked it in once I felt like it didn't need any adjustments. And then my profile adjustment just added that cherry on top. So, and remember, this is not like end all be all, like your photos not always are going to come out perfect, but the changes to them should be so minuscule that it's a slider adjustment. Go into your profile adjustment, make that slider adjustment, and watch the next wedding.
Right.
Scott, I actually do have a question for you, and maybe it's like a dumb question. I hope it's not stupid. You guys are all going to look at me like, how do you not know this? But if I wanted to, judging me, if I wanted to make a secondary profile that mimics mine currently. So I love mine. I don't want to mess with it. I think it's great. But if I wanted to make a secondary one that mimics it, but that I start working on doing some profile adjustments, and I don't want to mess with a good thing, like, can I duplicate it and say, like, this is the main one and this is the one you're messing with? Like, can I
Right.
duplicate them currently, or what's
So, no, it's a good question. We get that question a lot, actually. Right now, we do not have a way to duplicate profiles. There's some technicality things that come into play, but that's something that we're actively looking into as far as how to solve it.
Like, I know that there's a history thing, so I can dial it back. So if I try it
Yeah.
out and I'm like, I don't like this, I can change it, right? But
Well, the profile adjustments, at least, you could. So the way profile adjustments works is, once you make those settings, it's an instant thing, right? You don't even have to do a re-edit. You can just hit re-download your project.
Which,
and
yeah, I see the math and the programming. I'm like, oh, that's so easy.
Yeah.
That is
So
so
cool,
great.
yeah.
So good.
So you can literally make a profile adjustment, hit re-download, watch those edits come in, and be like, it's a little off. Do it again, re-download instantly. Without
Which is
having
also
to wait.
something I just learned at WCI, that you can do this. What is it? 6 times you can re-edit the same thing if you.
I think it's unlimited.
No. Re-edit is up to 5 additional times beyond the original edit.
Oh.
So if you were like, if you're
you need
starting
more
out
than
from
5,
scratch,
yeah,
if you're starting out from like scratch and you're like, okay, I don't want to use my own, I'm going to use a talent profile, and I want to test them out. So I didn't know that was a thing, and maybe it wasn't a thing a year ago, but I didn't know it was a thing. So I was doing like 100 images. I would do like 100 photos, and I would test like triplings. And then I do 100, and I would test this one. I do 100, and I test this one. And that's how I found I think it's called warm skin tones. That is the one that I landed on to start using as the talent. But if I had known that, I would have been like, re-edit, just to like mess around and find out. I mean, now I have my own, so I don't feel the need to mess with the talent ones. But for those of you who are,
it's about 3 months old, maybe, the re-edit feature. We originally launched it with you could re-edit up to 3 times. Now it's up to 6 total with the original. And you can re-edit with another personal profile, a talent profile, or a profile shared with you, which is a nice segue into Sam and Ashley. You are both sharing your profiles with other Imaginers, right? How's that going?
They love
me. You can do it up to 3
Tell me
people.
more.
How's that going?
Amazing.
Fine.
Yeah,
well, actually, I just saw in that post that you just shared there, Scott, somebody asked you, Ashley, can you share that? And my heart sank. I was like, oh no, are you going to do that?
Yeah, they're doing great. Yeah, they love them. Their edits are, they don't have to re-edit them, but it's kind of nice to see their work. And I love following them and seeing just the adjustments that, they have on their own work with my own profile. Because I did put a lot of time and attention into the weddings that I photographed. To kind of make things, as close to film that I possibly could. So I really wanted to emulate that feeling still. And I don't necessarily call myself only a light and airy photographer, because I don't want to put myself in a box. I want to have a range of feeling and light, and just whatever I'm working with is what I'm going to produce. But I want it to be beautiful, and then carry in the film when I've shot it. So, but it's going great. I love it, and I'm glad they love it too. And I know, sorry guys, it's only up to 3, but yeah.
So did you know that profile adjustments also works on shared profiles?
I love it.
So if somebody has your profile,
they can add that saturation.
They can do whatever they want to it without having to replicate it as their own. They can literally just use profile adjustments. So I'll show you what I mean.
Making it their own.
Show me what that means. Very curious.
So it's basically what I did with this.
Pretty much.
Right? Like, I took his and then I would adjust it. But I mean, I did it in Lightroom.
So you can see here, this is my profile. I've got a bunch of various ones that I'm testing. Some
those
are real,
greens, is that what it says?
Those greens. Yeah, those greens. So you can go in and you can do adjust profile. This is my own profile, right? And I am sharing it, but I'm sharing it with another test account of mine. But then if you look here, this one called Vibrant, this is actually a profile shared with me by Caroline Tran. right? I cannot do anything to that. I can't even click in it like I can click on my own to see the data, right? I can't click in it. This one too, this is also Caroline's. I cannot do anything to these. But I can go here and I can still do profile adjustment on a profile shared with me. So those Imaginers that you're sharing your profile with can make it their own with the profile adjustment.
I love it.
So
Very cool.
fun feature. Let's see. There's James asked a question that we just sort of covered. Is it better to give it all sorts of lighting situations? Yes.
Yes. 100%.
My favorite. So the line that I like to say is diversity. I was trying to squeeze this in earlier, but we shifted topics. Diversity creates diversity when it comes to the AI profiles. So the more diversity you give it to learn from, the more diverse it can handle in the future. My favorite demo that I do at all the trade shows, and I demo it on the live streams all the time, is a family session that I did. It was an engagement session, rather, that I did in 2018. The couple since now have 2 kids. And at that engagement session, there was snow on the ground, and I was using a cheap strobe because I'm cheap and don't want to buy the one that I want to buy. So it misfired all the time, right? So I've got photos of it perfectly exposed with the flash, the nice contrast from the strobe and all that stuff. And then I have photos where the flash misfired and it's just dark and flat. And when you run it through Imagen, you can barely tell a difference. You can tell a difference because there is an obvious difference between strobe and no strobe. But like edit-wise, they look identical.
They do. And you get surprised too with those photos as well, because it does look really ambient and soft lit. And then you have your flash photo and you're like, oh no, which one do I like better? You know? So it's like, okay, I misfire my flash all the time. Listen, I'm not a flash photographer. I'm at my readings. I'm like, did you get that? You know, with my assistants, because my misfiring's going off. But gotten better at it. But it's so funny. But you're right. When you don't have the flash go off, it still somehow links them together to make them look very similar.
Yep.
Surprising.
Carl asked a question that we already answered. How many profiles do you use? So we've got Lindsay uses 1, Ashley uses 2, Sam uses 1, and I experiment.
I want to build more now just to have fun with it.
It is a lot of fun. I literally made one. I've been having a lot of fun trying to make ones that are, I mean, if you look, pay attention carefully, you can see this one's called Velvet Media. This is me trying to replicate Velvia film. And this one is hypersensitive.
Why Velvia? Why specifically?
I'm just having fun.
Describe the characteristics of that film-esque Fuji thing that you love.
But my favorite black and white film is I'm avoiding that question.
He's
my
like,
favorite
absolutely
black and
not.
white film is Ilford HP5. So that's what this hypersensitive panchromatic is, because that's actually what HP stands for.
I know nothing of this. Hewlett-Packard.
I mean, it's definitely cheaper than the like $50, $60 you're to spend on a roll of film and processing right now. I was dying when Ashley, you said you shoot 10 rolls of film at a wedding. I was like, I got to increase my prices if I was doing that.
Between 5 and 10, and then some weddings, I don't shoot film at all. And I'm like, I'm happy. I'm very happy. Depends on my client too. If they know what film is, guess what I'm doing? Film.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Andrew said, I have not built my profile yet because I use 3 different presets for different parts of the day. Do I still need to build a base profile to use the new profile adjustments? You would still need a profile, yes. A personal AI profile if you want to make it yours, or a talent AI profile, or a shared profile with you.
But you could still, can you not, like, could you not just make one profile using all 3 of those? It's going to learn.
So
it'll be like
depends.
morning.
That's
Here's his
the
morning
goal.
preset. Here's his afternoon preset, bright light, and then here's your evening preset. Like, I assume that if you give it enough data, it's gonna start to recognize. I mean, it would be sweet to not have to hit different presets all the time.
Right. Yeah. It depends on how different those presets are. Like if the end result for the edit is dramatically different, then it's not going to be beneficial to have the one profile. But if the end goal of all 3 presets is to have this consistent look, then yes, having it as one is the way to go for sure.
Yeah, just build the 3 profiles and then star your photos that are in that sequence of that event that needs that one profile. Load it up, run it on that and then do the next, run it on that one. And you can do it all at the same time too. So that when you download your edits, it's all there.
Yep. Carl, I shoot landscapes, events, food, drag racing, and auto shows. Oh man, drag racing, that'd be fun to shoot. Just curious if when people are in the pics, is the AI able to color correct variations with multiple subjects? So it's a overall global white balance for the photos. It won't correct white balance of every single person, but we do have the new subject mask feature that is in beta and has a nice update coming very soon. And soon everybody will have control over the subject mask as well, which would be really cool. And
Oh, that's
so if
cool.
I will say I've photographed a lot of food photography, and that is uniquely challenging. Like, should I emphasize the lobster or the fried onions on top of the halibut? I don't know. The halibut is very white, like deep fried onions.
Yeah.
It's like very dark and rich. Like there are some things. This is why sending a bunch of your work ahead of time to train the profile is actually better than the profile adjustments. Like it will start to parse out and identify the subject matter in your work relative to what needs to be brighter, darker, something else.
Yeah,
I think.
And honestly, I mean, I'm not shooting like that's fun, drag racing, very specific. But I mean, the difference between a newborn session in somebody's home versus a wedding is very, very different, like stylistically. And I still use the exact same profile because I trained it on enough babies and enough weddings that it's still the same. And I mean, for all of those, I did use the same preset. So I think you get into weird territory when people are really using a lot of different presets. I guess my question is, unless you have like literally a different website where you're like, this is where I do auto, and this is my auto website, and this is where I do families, this is my family website. There's something to be said for choosing something that consistently represents your work as a photographer across the board on all of those things. So I think that's why I'm able to have one Instagram account where I share babies and weddings in the same spot, because it's not like people aren't, you know, getting whiplash being like, oh my gosh, this crazy edit versus this edit. I would say I would almost encourage photographers that do have wildly different edits to like find one that feels like you as the photographer and your work across all of those, unless you are really doing a completely different, like each one has its own brand, like the auto has its own brand and food has its own brand, then obviously do your own thing. But for the photographers that are sort of still messing around with like, I bought this preset from like Mastin Labs, or I bought this from whatever, and they're just messing around with so many different things, like work on creating your own. And then your profile is going to be so much more consistent. It's just going to feel like you, and it's going to feel like your work rather than like a preset.
There was a question or comment. Where was it? Here it is. James, I think we just sort of covered that for you about the different genres. Matthew, I got Imagen up and running after hearing Sam talk about it. I'm a systems engineer full-time and have a toddler with another baby coming Monday. Congratulations. Time is so valuable, and I've already gotten so much back. So that's fantastic. Thank you. He also says, it's different, Matthew. If I re-edit with adjustments and re-download, am I paying again? So, okay, I'm going to walk through this. We're running out of time, so I'm going to try to walk through this real quick. But there it is. So you do profile adjustments, right? You make your profile adjustments. Oops, I can go in here and do this. You make your profile adjustments. Let's say I just do this and I just cool it down a little bit, right? You then go to your project that you already edited with. So you can see this one is called this project was edited with those greens. I don't have to re-edit. It's instant. You don't have to re-edit when you do a profile adjustment. You just go and hit download edits, and that's it. It'll download your edits with your profile adjustments in place, completely free. You can do it unlimited times, no re-editing required when you utilize profile adjustments.
That's incredible. time saver right there too.
Yep.
And
Because
cost.
re-edit takes time, right? I mean, if you do a re-edit, it has to rerun all those edits, so that takes a lot of time.
I usually go take a bath, come back, it's done.
That's nice. Oh my gosh, I gotta work that into my.
Yeah,
Zone out.
It's all math. Like past when your files are in Imagen servers, it's all math.
Yep.
Like offset from there. That is literally all that's happening. Is you're saying, I don't know exactly what the values are. It's a little opaque, I guess, with the profile adjustments. They don't really, I don't think, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, they tell you, like nudging the white balance a little more warm is +10. I don't know what it is, but.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's supposed to match. I have to double check with the team, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to match the develop module to the T.
Okay.
But,
okay.
like for fixed value.
So the AI value would be like 10 points. Like you're gonna add it, you know.
Yeah, because that's what it did with my saturation yesterday. I did +15 and sweet spot for me, and I was like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's just a matter of play around, see what works. I think there's been a lot of feature requests for it, including the ability to make the adjustments in Lightroom and then basically us pulling that into profile adjustments from your actual edit in Lightroom so you can visualize it more. So like that's something that we're exploring as well to make using profile adjustments even easier for you.
And think of the profile adjustment as a mirror to your Lightroom setting module. So when I went in there, I was like, oh, these are my module. This is my module. I'm just going to tweak it here and then it's done.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so let's see if we can get, there's a lot of questions. This is great. I still have my own questions, but I don't think we're going to get to them because there's a lot.
We can do a part two.
We'll do a part two. Sam, this is all you, man. This is all you.
Okay.
Right on the
Sam's
spot.
profile.
What's the going rate? Auction starts now.
Okay. Go.
Yeah. So
Sam, you should like make it a requirement that people have to take your workshop in order for them to use your profile. Because you can add Sam's profile on, but if you're not shooting like Sam, you're not. That's never gonna happen. Like, sorry, I don't mean that in a mean way to Matthew. Matthew, you're totally right. Like, I would love to edit with Sam's style as well, but having taken Sam's course, it's so much about how you shoot in your lighting scenarios and how you use light. Yeah. So I could slap a profile on there and it's going to be very different, which is, I think, probably why actually you're comfortable with sharing your profile with people, because you're like, only I can do this in my way, exactly this way. Obviously you can apply it to anybody's work and it's going to look great, but so much of your look is the shot.
My preset on anybody's profile might look awful. Like
I look insane, actually.
Accept that.
Yeah, Sam, I have to agree with that. Yeah, because I've played with people's photos before and it just doesn't hit the same. And that's because of the technicality on how they shot the wedding. And I always have to say, shoot the wedding I always shoot my weddings as I see it, even with my white balance. Like, it's there, I'm shooting it, it's almost perfect out of camera with what I'm seeing in person. But then I switch to that black and white and I'm good to go. But it always factors into how is this looking in camera. Now, I deal with a lot of people that come to me like, I messed up this wedding. It's really, really low exposure, very, very orange. And I'm like, ooh, we have to bring a lot more data now into this photo where this could have been fixed in camera. So, and then it would have been a lot easier to edit to get the result that you want. So a lot of training has to go into how you're shooting your weddings in that camera. That's the first point. So work on that. If you're not getting the results that you want, I think out of camera is going to be probably the trigger of why the profiles might not be working best for you and why you have to do a lot of adjustments.
It's interesting. I a couple weeks ago, I was working on a video with another person, and he wasn't quite getting it, and which surprised me. But like then I had a realization of a different way to explain it, of how this works. And just looking for the first time, you might think Imagen learns how I edit in Lightroom, right? That's what we say, right? It makes the most sense. But in reality, it goes beyond that. not only we're learning how you edit in Lightroom, but we're actually learning how you shoot. We are actually looking at the camera's metadata, and we can see, oh, it was dark, and this photographer underexposes even more because of this reason. You know, like we see exactly what is happening, and we learn how you would actually adjust to that situation, right? So if Sam is photographing a dark situation and is trying to silhouette the couple, or is trying to get the shadow to be very dominant, because that's Sam with the shadows, right? And and you know, like we're learning that Sam does that, or we're learning that Lindsay, you do it the way you do it, and Ashley, you do it the way you do it, because this is how you shoot.
Yeah.
So if someone takes your profiles and shoots completely different, your expected results are more than likely not going to be. They could be, but they're more than likely going to need some tweaking, and obviously that's where.
And Scott, I think that's such a good point, because prior to Imagen, I outsourced my editing to, you know, actually I've tried like probably every outsourcing company that exists. I don't know if they still exist or if you guys ended them, but
absorbed them. They're done.
They're gone now. Rest in peace.
No, my galleries are so consistent. What?
Yeah, yeah. Or if they're just using Imagen now and charging for it, probably. I
definitely
most definitely, if they're not like truly rest in peace to your company. But anyways, I used them all, and you know, there are so many problems that I found in that. I got as close as I could with the last one that I finished off with before using Imagen. First of all, it still takes actually a lot of time to have a person manually adjusting your images. But the thing that I realized, and this is even after like they had my preset, they had years worth of catalogs to learn from. What they weren't taking into account, because it's a person instead of math, it's a person looking at that image and saying, did she mean to underexpose that? Was that intentionally backlit? Were their faces in the sun intentional, or should I drop those highlights because that was like a whoopsie or whatever, right? And in giving Imagen my editing style, it's like you said, it's not just the edit, it's how I shot it. It's literally how I shot it in camera. And it knows how I treat those circumstances. And I think that's a big question that a lot of people have, is like, well, how's it going to know that I intentionally backlit a person? Well, you knew that you intentionally backlit them, and you edited all of those situations based on that. So it's going to know. It's like as close to somebody implanting a thing in my brain as I've gotten.
And there will be times where we get it wrong. I mean, you know, AI can make mistakes too, but the chances of it happening is far less because of all the data it's learning from, right? Plus the
oh, actually, yeah, Jane's asking this exact question.
Yeah,
How does it
yeah, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
I was like, it's perfect.
Well, I mean, here, I'll answer the other ones, because I feel like I went down the rabbit hole on post-production companies. So to give you an idea, first of all, they will never ever be as consistent as you want them to be. You will get a different editor. It doesn't matter if you pay for the same editor at all of those companies, you will always get a different editor. They'll be editing at different times of day throughout their process. So they might edit in the morning, and then maybe they'll edit in the evening, and you'll be like, why is this one all of a sudden really cool toned? And why is this one really warm? And you're still dealing with a human editor that's going to get it wrong sometimes. It is so costly. I spent close to $20,000 in 1 year on post-production editing. And I think last year I spent like $2,000 or $3,000 with Imagen, and I edited way more images, because when I was using a post-production company, I wouldn't send everything. I would just send what I had to, because I was behind or because I really needed help with stuff. But it also just takes so much longer. Like you said, Ashley goes for a bath and comes back out and it's done. And you can actually, while you're still excited about the shoot, you can do it, versus like, oh, I got it back a week later and I have to re-edit the entire thing. Cool, you know? So there are many, many things that are different. So far, I haven't seen one downfall from Imagen that was a plus in using a post-production company.
I've never had to relook at my galleries again the next day. Let's just say that with Imagen. When I did have private editors, because I edit too for people, but it's just one of those things where we do make human errors. My eyes shift and change, and it's wonky after a while up in front of the screen. And the next day I look, I'm like, ooh, I got to re-edit these. So I needed that consistency in my life. So going through Imagen and updating my profile, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's always consistent for me. Is it always perfect? It's 99.9% there for me. Today, last night, after my adjustments, it's 100% there for me right now. So let me do my next wedding. And I'm like, oh, it's just a refresher of my eyes where I can look at it going, these tones are beautiful and I can mimic the film. And it's so good, and I don't have to have that human error because that can be easily happen. But we are dealing with a computer, At the end of the day, our editing style does change. I mean, mine did change drastically over the last course of 12 months. So I'm learning my new style too. So that's kind of the fun in our edits, is just kind of playing around with it, getting the rhythm. And once you have that rhythm down, go for it. And you might change again.
Yeah. So, but by the way, that's a good reason to keep doing the fine tuning, even with the profile adjustments is, so when you're ready to fine tune, if you do change, all that data is there.
Yep.
Keeping in my mic. So Carl asks, I still haven't set up a profile yet. Curious if you have any walkthrough videos we can watch to walk us through that. Yes, on YouTube, on the Imagen YouTube channel. Got a whole wide range. We've got documentation on the site as well. You can also, before I forget, I can't believe I haven't had this up yet. So we've got, if you are interested in subscribing to Imagen, you can save 10% on your first invoice by using the coupon code Big Deal. I should have shared this way earlier. It expires on May the 4th, be with you. So please, yes, nerd right here.
Such a nerd. What the fuck?
So if you're thinking about subscribing, use the code Big Deal. You'll save 10% on your first invoice for any new pay-as-you-go plans. So there's that.
Yeah, Star Wars so full of AI, the next generation. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh man, there's a lot of comments. Jeez.
I'm scrolling.
Okay.
I'm glad you guys
can
see them. I can't see them. I can see like 5 comments. It's the weirdest thing.
That's so funny.
I see them all oddly. And can I just say, a lot of people, the most recent one, I think I've noticed my profile is spot on for my photos, but my second shooter's photos are a little bit off or different, always off. Do I need to run her through a different profile? Yeah, I am curious how Imagen interprets various sensors across camera models.
When I say diversity creates diversity, that also means the cameras. So if you train it with, for example, Sarah Edmonds, when she created her profile Love and Light, she created it with basically every camera brand, because she, not only has she switched camera brands, I think 3 times over the many years, but she also has been editing for other photographers. So she has a wide range of photos she was able to build it with. And so by creating a profile with photos from Fuji cameras and Canon cameras and Sony cameras and Nikon cameras and so on, maybe this Pentexers.
Nobody uses. Yeah.
No?
Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Did you even say Leica? That was like.
I love that Leica.
Leica, we do have
Are
Leica.
people editing their Leica photos? People, I think they just are like, here's the black and white. It's cool, right?
So like by creating a profile with all those different cameras, sensors, lenses, you're creating a very diverse profile that can handle any second shooter, basically. So if you are going to have second shooters that are using your profile, try to add them to your fine tune, basically, edit through Imagen, make those final edits and upload to fine tune. So that way, if your profile was not originally created with it, eventually once your profile is fine tuned, all that new data will be in there for it to get more diverse.
Yeah, my team has 3 photographers on it, and all 3 of us use 4 different cameras.
Wow.
So I think that's a really good question. But before we were doing this AI, it was really hard for me to match the R6 to my Sony and then the GFX.
Exhausting. My brain is like, cool.
I would have to do slides, carry things in. You could tell in my galleries who shot what because the colors were not the same nearby each other. So when we moved into the AI and editing, I'm like, how is this possible that it actually looks like the same camera, obviously different qualities, and of course, but it will train based off of that. Like I have 3 photographers and we all use different gear for a reason. And it's been wonderful. So they do match up after a while.
Yeah, my main second photographer, my assistant, she shoots on Nikon. I feel a little bad because I was shooting on Nikon before when she first got started with me. So she was like, okay, go full in on Nikon. And I was like, psych, I switched to Canon R6. And I was nervous how that was going to go, especially matching editing styles. Thankfully, it was like at the same time that I was switching to using Imagen. And truthfully, I can't tell the difference between our images at all. It completely matches, which is why I like harp so much about the consistency of Imagen. It really is. It's the consistency that I, as a human, cannot bring into photos easily. Like, sure, I could get there with some time, and like with my eyes hurting at the end of it, but having it match a Nikon to a Canon, a mirrorless system, you know, it's pretty remarkable. But that is because I gave it, you know, a lot of data points of Nikon and Canon cameras.
Right.
So maybe, yeah, Jennifer, give your profile more of hers.
Yeah, Jennifer, you're using the same systems that I am. We can talk after this too. Maybe I can help you.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
It looks like Andrew's actually asking a very similar question. Like he's planning on switching from Nikon to Sony.
Woohoo!
So,
No.
I mean, you might want to just make like, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but if you're just doing a drastic switch, you might just want to make profile adjustments right off the hop instead of retraining it. Like I would say, because if you have all of your previous, like if you're going to upload your catalogs from last year and they're all from Nikon, and then you're going to immediately start trying to edit Sony images, would you not be better just trying to go in and say, okay, here are the differences?
well, what
make
I would
everything
do,
green or whatever.
Yeah, what I would do in that situation is basically I would run the new photos through the same profile. For now, I'll call that profile Nikon because he's switching from Nikon to Sony. So I would run the Sony photos through his Nikon profile and then figure out what adjustments have to be made after the fact to make it match his editing style. And then go into that profile in Imagen, do my profile adjustments, and then re-download to ensure that it is, you know, where it needs to be. And then from there on, keep editing with that profile adjustment turned on. So that way the edit's already done ahead of time. And all you're doing is re-uploading the final edits after the fact for the profile to keep learning. So that's the approach I would take for that switch in that case.
Amazing.
Okay, we are well over time. I took up a lot of the time from all 3 of you, so thank you. I didn't even get through all my questions, but it's okay because this was fantastic. I appreciate it. Any closing remarks that either of you want to say to anybody? Everybody watching? Anything?
Thanks for being here and loving Imagen as much as we do. And I know that this is just the beginning of what's to come. And I can't wait to see just more things unroll out for all of us to utilize because it's been great for our businesses. It's going to continue to grow. And I'm just happy to be a part of the process here.
Awesome. Sam or Lindsay, anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
Part 2.
Part 2. I wrote it down. Part 2. When's that happening?
We
We'll do some live editing for you guys next time.
So I'm going to just close with this remark. If you have been enjoying this live stream and you would like to know when the next live stream is, just tune into the community. We also send out emails. There's a QR code right up on the screen that you can scan and get right to the Imagen community. By joining the community, you get access to exclusive conversations, live events, Q&As. We do Q&As with the Imagen founders every so often. So I do hope to see you there. Again, just scan that code there. I have another code up on the screen where if you do not have an account at all with Imagen yet, you can sign up and get a trial with 1,500 free edits. And of course, the code, which I wish I put up earlier, is the coupon code. So if you do want to subscribe, you can subscribe with Big Deal and get 10% off your first invoice in a new pay-as-you-go plan. So thank you everybody for who is tuning in. When is part 2 coming? I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. It will come
Tomorrow.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Sam
you guys are
and
coming on to Hawaii time though, so you guys are staying up late or.
Yeah. Maybe we can get Sam, Taylor, and Lindsay to do something while they're all in Hawaii. Maybe let's see if we can.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, let us just squeeze that into the calendar. No problem.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna roll the outro. Thank you everybody for who is tuning in live. We really appreciate you sticking in there, asking your questions. Fantastic questions. So thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.